Let's welcome to our talk show, Let's Talk. Today we have our guest, SHIVANI GURUVARA. SHIVANI has been a regular counselor on our talks, and she's been joining us from Singapore. She is here to spend her valuable time with us to guide us through the problems that we go through every day. And it's been so great of you, ma'am, to give your time to us and be part of this show and guide us in the right way. Today's topic is about stress management, and a very important topic per se, because every one of us, there isn't anyone on the call probably who do not understand what is stress. I mean, we keep having it. It can be acute at times, or it can be a continued thing for a few people who are unfortunate and who couldn't manage their stress. So I would want to understand a general perspective of stress from you to start with, and then we'll go into a deep dive discussion around how to manage it.
Okay, like you said, Ashoka, that almost everybody goes through stress. There was a research that was done in about 10 years back, probably less. I don't remember the exact year. But that research, it was somewhere in the 2000s. And 2018, yes, that I remember now, where they said that 89% of the people self-reported that they are stressed. So you can imagine how high that number is. It's almost 90%, which is saying that 9 people out of 10 that we meet, they feel and they would say that I'm stressed. And when we look at, stress, it's a physical reaction and a mental reaction. So it's a cumulative kind of a thing that happens to us. And unfortunately, what has happened with us is that our modern amenities have increased. We don't live in the jungle anymore. We live in houses. We are well protected. There is nothing that is attacking us for survival. We don't have to fight for our survival on a very daily basis. And that part has changed. What has not changed is the way our body reacts to stress. And that reaction, that biological reaction that is part of our system, is actually a very, very essential and important thing, because it teaches you how to fight or run away, fight or flight response, as it is called. And what happens is, so what has happened over thousands and thousands of years, literally, a million years probably, when the human body, the human sapien, has lived in the jungle, we've had threats, survival threats from larger animals. We were not the predators, we were the prey. And so whenever we had that threat, our body would immediately prepare. And that part included things like faster heartbeat, blood flow to the extremities so that we can run. Yeah, things like the digestion stops, because that is not essential for that particular time. And all this is, done because of certain hormones that get into our body, like cortisol. It is called the stress hormone. All this is perfectly fine as long as that, peak in the cortisol comes down in 5, 10, 15 minutes, perfectly fine, because the body does that to help you survive. Today, what happens is we have no survival threats. The kind of threats that we have are financial troubles, or relationship issues, or exam stress, or academic issues. And those don't finish off in 15 minutes. They stay in our head for not just weeks, for months, and sometimes years. And that really affects negatively, because the body is in that kind of a state for so long. I mean, imagine your body has constricted and reduced digestion for 6 months. It means you will develop things like IBS and lots of things like aches and pains, because your muscles tense up with high cortisol levels. So there are a lot of, how shall I put it, physical symptoms and manifestations of stress. And yeah, that is one of the biggest reasons why we need to be able to control that. Not only that, higher levels of stress reduce your performance. They don't increase it. I do want to say one thing over here, which is that there is something called eustress, EU stress. And that is what is a name given to good and healthy levels of stress. So if you are, going in to make a speech on the stage, or you're going to make a presentation in front of your class, or your, in the hall, a little bit of butterflies in the stomach, a little bit of anxiety, not anxiety is a strong word, but a little bit of nervous energy actually helps you perform much better. Because if you're just too laid back, then you will not prepare. That kind of eustress helps you and keeps you motivated.
Thank you, ma'am. I mean, from whatever I could make out of what you've explained to us, stress is a natural phenomenon that the body is made with, where we are supposed to react to a certain scenario in a certain way, but only to a limited possible extent, to a limited time. But what is happening with us right now is that that mechanism in our body that is supposed to last for a limited set of time has now been prolonged beyond a limit. And that is what is causing issues in our body, not the actual stress as a phenomenon.
Yep. So yeah, we don't really need that kind of high level of cortisol. We don't need our body to be prepared to fight a lion or run away from a lion, because those problems don't exist. However, when the mind starts to think I have a problem and I'm stressed, then automatically the hormones that are produced in our body are the same hormones. And yes, we've lived in the modern world for what? I mean, even if we stretch it 2000 years, and it's been literally millions of years when our body has been evolving to be in survival mode. Today, we don't need to be in survival mode, but unfortunately, as of now, our body hasn't really kept up and understood that this is not a survival situation, even if we are having financial troubles, even if we are having relationship issues, even if we have some amount of exam stress or stress from parents that you should study and stuff like that.
Now, isn't it interesting to understand that the body, though, hasn't evolved with the situations around us, to look at it in a different way, probably the body or our circumstances have perceived a similar kind of threat that we had been going through while we were hunters and gatherers, and we are being hunted by the animals, to what we are going through today. What I'm trying to arrive at is, let us say a scenario today which is stressing us a lot might be of a similar intensity to a scenario that would have happened at that point in time. But today the problem is that this scenario has been haunting us forever and we are not able to come out of it. Probably our lifestyles have evolved in such a way that we have on ourselves bestowed, I would use the word bestowed because we have willfully got them up on us. We have bestowed all of these scenarios on us to go through such stress.
I doubt, Ashoka, that people had financial troubles at that time, right? I mean, the kind of things that we talk about, or divorce issues, and those kind of things wouldn't be there, or relationship issues. So the problems at that time were survival problems. The problems today are literally created by us. And yeah, and why I say this is because there's a quote which says that stress is the power that we give to an external situation.
Great.
Because, and let me give you an example or a short story, right? I remember having listened to this story in one of the speeches that Sundar Pichai gave when he came back to India, some time back. The story goes like this. There's a kitty party happening with all the ladies, and they go to a restaurant. It's a very nice restaurant, and they all sit down to have, to chit chat and talk and gossip. And all of a sudden, there's a cockroach that comes out of nowhere and comes and sits on the lap of one lady. And she's petrified. She's, she hates, she just can't stand the sight of it. And she flips it away like that and screams out loudly. The cockroach then, unfortunately, falls onto the lap of another lady. She's extremely angry at the whole thing. And she's like, starts screaming at the manager, saying, call the manager, I want to speak to them. What is this kind of an establishment? So she bestows, she shows anger. The previous one showed disgust because, it's a dirty insect. The cockroach then flies and goes on to the shoulder of a waiter. Now, the waiter's pretty used to all this stuff back in the kitchen. So he, picks up the cockroach with the antenna, walks calmly out of the door, and puts it in the dustbin outside in the garbage. Now, the cockroach was the same. It was the same cockroach. It was the fact that the first woman looked at the cockroach, felt disgusted because she thinks, what does she think? So it's her thought that the cockroach is a dirty insect, and so she's disgusted. The second woman is angry because of the fact that this is a clean, nice restaurant and it should be clean. And because of the fact that cockroach is not clean, she has a reaction of anger. And the waiter has a reaction which is extremely calm. Both the women were stressed, the waiter was not, but the cockroach was the same.
Yeah.
So, and you see that in a lot of your normal circumstances also, there are people who are stuck in traffic and they are screaming and giving galis. And there are other people who are sitting and saying, okay, clear, we will move.
They're listening to songs.
Yeah, so is the traffic at fault, or are your thoughts at fault, or how you're perceiving the situation? What's at fault? That's a question, all of you guys can answer for yourself. And the answer is pretty evident, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So in the previous days, when we were all evolving as a generation or a civilization, yes, we had our own things to do to come out of stress. Maybe it was running away from the danger, or maybe about building a safe hideout so that we feel safe. Now, we cannot think about all of these measures today because it has changed. The circumstances that are causing the stress have changed. So what do you think should be our hideouts? What do you think should be our petrifications around us so that we are feeling safe?
Okay, lots and lots of things. I mean, I can, you can probably put your mic on mute and I can continue for the rest of the hour in terms of what we can do. We can definitely do a lot. The first thing that I would suggest is that since this is our body literally, doing a flip on us and, causing us so much of stress with high cortisol levels, we can do a flip and we can fool our minds using our bodies. So what's happening today is the mind tells this situation is stressful. The body starts to increase all your cortisol levels and, stuff like that. And then we feel stressed and it happens for a long time. Now let's reverse the process. You make your body tell your mind all is well. Yeah. And so your stress levels actually reduce. In the mind also they reduce. And it also affects your body, and your cortisol levels also reduce. How can you do that? There are lots and lots of techniques. And when I was talking, since I'm talking about the mind right now, let's talk about the physical relaxation techniques, okay? The first is deep breathing, right? And it is my favorite because it's not telling you to do yoga. It's not telling you, to do something which takes time. It is as simple as the moment you find yourself in a stressful situation or your mind's going all over the place, just sit down and breathe deeply 5 to 6 times and focus on your breath. That's all you need to do. Sit anywhere, literally, in your car, on your, when you're studying on your table. If you're lying down and stressful thoughts are going on, 5 to 10 deep breaths. Take them all in, hold it out and focus on the air, just your mind. A typical way of doing that is count 4, 7, 8. 4 while in, so 7 for hold, so and then out while counting 8. And another thing I would suggest is all the young people are extremely, skeptical to do these kind of things. So do this once, just because I'm saying it, okay? Do it once. Think about this thing that is stressing you. Rate it on a scale, think about how stressful am I feeling about this? And you can rate it on 1 to 10 scale, yeah? Do this deep breathing for 10 counts. So 4, take in, 7, hold, 8 out. Now this is just a guideline. It doesn't have to be 4, 7, 8. The whole idea is to take in deep breaths and be conscious and focus on the breath. And then after you've done these 5, 10 counts, then rate your stress level again. How are you feeling? So it's just a feel. kind of a thing. So that's one of my favorite. There are also other techniques, like there's one called the EFT, which is the emotional freedom technique. Again, that's a very simple thing you can do anywhere. You can Google it. If we have time, Ashoka, I can show you what it is, because it does require a video. Great. Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So there are two aspects of an EFT technique. The first is that you have to first frame your statement. The statement is basically whatever is stressing you or whatever you are feeling at that time. The idea is to allow yourself to feel whatever you are feeling without being judgmental and without being stressful. So what you would do is, even though I am feeling dash, and that dash is whatever you are feeling at that point, stressed, anxious, angry, frustrated, whatever it is. So even though I am feeling frustrated, I deeply and totally love myself. Okay, so once you've framed this sentence, now you start the tapping. So the tapping basically is just literally tapping. It's tapping on specific parts of your body which open up your energy pathways. Okay, so the tapping points are, it starts from right here in the middle of your head. Okay, and I'm going to have to take off my specs to show you the others. Okay, so the middle of the head, that's the first point. Then this part, just above your eyebrow, is the second point. The third one is towards the side of your eye, where you can feel a little bit of a hollow. That's your third point. Below your eye and just above where your cheekbone starts is the next one. The next two are easy. It's upper lip, just below the lip. After that, you come to the clavicle, and just slightly, at the clavicle, not at the tip, but slightly below that. And the last one is under your arm, slightly, not at the underarm, but slightly below here. So we can, go ahead and do that together. And while you're doing that, you say the statement that you have created for yourself. So even though I am frustrated, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I am frustrated, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I am frustrated, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I am frustrated, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I am frustrated, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I am frustrated, I deeply and completely accept myself. So this one is the last one, which I did not mention earlier. Now, this is one round that you complete. And don't worry about, if you miss a step or if you go haywire the first time, but, watch this video again and you'll know. I'll just repeat the points. It's here, just above the eyebrow here, on the side of the eye, below the eye, above the lip, just below the lower lip, slightly below the tip of the clavicle, under the underarm, and then chop, chop. Okay, now, again, very simple stuff. It feels really simple, and you feel, what's there in all this? Just tap, tap, tap. So, and I'm saying this honestly because when I read about these things initially, it took me some time to actually try them out. I didn't try them out initially. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll get to it. I'll try it. Just the same as with deep breathing, maybe you should, try and assess your stress levels before you do this. Do at least 5 to 10 rounds of the EFT technique and then assess how you're feeling. And so the whole idea behind these kind of techniques, which is the deep breathing technique and the EFT technique, is that you are making your body calm, and then that kind of in turn makes your brain calmer.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got a question on the chat, and I would want to pick up that question with you. And the question says, oh, Jesus, I've lost that question. So the question, I've read it already. So the question says, she's a girl and she's been stressed out a lot by her parents' behavior because she seems to be giving importance to everyone, and she seems to be treating everyone in the same way, irrespective of their caste or creed, which doesn't go well with their parents. They always treat her in such a way, explaining her that she'll have to maintain her status and maintain her castely feeling while interacting with others. And they do not look at her with the right behavior from their perspective. That stresses her out. And they also consider a girl to be born only to be married out, and not for constructive reasons. And she's quite stressed out with these feelings and the situation that is there at home. And she wants to understand how can she deal with this stress that she's going through because of a situation that her parents have put on her.
Okay, first things first, in terms of the, we've talked about the physical de-stressing part, and here is when the cognitive part comes in. Yeah, because when we are going through a situation, the first thing that we have to understand, and we have identified what is causing us stress. Then the next thing after, being aware of what is causing us stress is to understand whether it is in your, what part of the situation is under your control and what part is not. So there is something known as, the circle of control, and what is inside that circle and what is outside. If you actually start to think of this stuff that is in your control and out of your control, you'll realize that if you stay in the purview of what is in your control, you won't get stressed, because then that is an area that you can do something about. But the moment you start to control something that is out of that circle of control, you just get frustrated. Yeah. And that's the first step to understanding what, you should do in this kind of a scenario. So let's say in this scenario, for her, is the opinion of her parents in her control? No, it isn't. How she behaves, is that under her control? Yes, it is. Is there anything that she can do to influence her parents? Yes, she can. But the result is at the end of the day not in her control. In her control is the fact that she can talk to them if she feels comfortable about it. But whether they actually change their opinion or not is not in her control. Yeah. So that is what helps you be a bit at peace with the situation, in terms of when you can do this and you've done it, and beyond this is out of my control, then you are able to accept it. You're able to accept the fact that this is not in my control. So what her parents are thinking or believing is not in her control. She shouldn't worry about the fact that, my parents believe in caste system. That's really nothing that she can do about, except she can talk about it to her parents if she feels that it is a very old style of thinking, or share her opinion with her parents. I don't know how old she is, but this is something that really comes up when kids talk to me about, my parents don't allow me to do this. And the reason that it comes up is that, guys, you're in college now and you're almost adults. So start to take responsibility of your own actions and understand that you will have opinions which are different from your parents. The only idea is to understand that you don't have to fight them, but you can still have your own opinion. Yeah. And you can agree to disagree, like they say, right? So they can continue to believe what they believe, and you can continue to make your own judgments of what is right for you and what is not right for you. And I very specifically say what is right for you, because honestly, there is no absolute right or wrong.
Thank you, ma'am. I've come across a recent study. A 2012 study found that the stressors that the parents experience, such as financial troubles or managing a single parent household, may also lead to obesity in their children. Now, Yes. So this seems to be impacting the next generations in a quite a significant way. Now, as the next generation, all of our participants today who are students and who are going to be parents the next 10 years, 6 to 10 years to come, it is very important for them to understand the right ways of controlling their stress. Else they'll be doing injustice to the next generations to come, because they are resulting in a society that is going to go through a lot of mental issues as well as physical deformities. So what is your advice to them? How do they need to learn managing this stress with simple actions?
Okay, I mean, since we are starting off on this topic with the youngsters, and they would, I presume, be starting off on this journey, let me start what I call literally at the very beginning. And this is something, I very recently on my podcast is what I put this up, and it's available on Google Podcast if somebody really wants to go. It's called Live Your Best Life. And if you Google it, Live Your Best Life by Shivani, you'll get it. But yeah, coming to the point, actually, the whole thing begins with self-awareness. That was the title of the podcast, and that's why it came in my mind. The whole thing literally begins with self-awareness, because most of the time what happens is we are going through life without really thinking about what we are thinking. We have 60,000 thoughts that come in our heads. How many are you aware of? And how many of these thoughts are actually creating emotions in your head? And how many of these emotions are leading you towards a specific kind of action? Whether it's fighting with your parents or apologizing to your boyfriend or girlfriend, or any of those things. Because basically it's your thoughts, they cause emotions, and emotions really trigger and motivate action. And which is why I say that the awareness part is the part where you begin with. So you can do the EFT, and those are, or the deep breathing. Those are temporary ways of calming your body down, bringing, down to a grounded, calm level. And obviously, for the ones who are more calm, things like yoga and meditation are also very great. They really work fantastically, mindfulness. But for the youngsters, I would suggest that, because they're beginning on this path, and, the college is probably the initial stages of where stress has started to manifest. And as you grow older, if you don't control it, much more will happen. So what do I mean by self-awareness? Be aware of your thoughts. I understand there is a lot of stuff to do, and when you're doing that stuff, you have to be in the moment, focusing on your study. So I'm not saying, while you're studying, you suddenly start thinking about what are my thoughts. Not at all. But keep some time, maybe on a walk. So when you're walking, say no to music. Don't put your headphones on. Go for a walk alone without any distraction, and just think, or just sit. I don't think people have enough empty time, these days at all, because the phone's always there. And because you're in this continuous, what next, what next, what next? Honestly, guys, do this. Sit for 5 minutes without your phone, with your phone on mute, and see if you can just sit for 5 minutes doing nothing. Nothing, no controlling of your thoughts, no trying to meditate, nothing. Our bodies have become so used to having something in our hands, or talking, or listening to music, or studying, that we don't just calm down. Another quote that comes to my mind, and I love these quotes because they pack in so much. It says, for quick stress relief, calm down, slow down. So for quick stress relief, slow down. You really need to, take a minute and sit down. And in those 5-10 minutes that you have, and you do try and do this, think of what are your thoughts? What do you think of? What do you believe? Literally have a dialogue with yourself, guys. I call it like, it's, I know somebody, another psychologist who calls it, have a date with yourself, So go on a date with yourself, spend time with yourself. It's a great thing to help you also accept yourself the way you are. And that really is the beginning. The other thing that I feel about how to go around managing stress is when you're aware of your thoughts, then you start to also become aware of your emotions, and you start linking the two. And if you're really asking yourself questions, the right questions, yes, obviously a counselor, a coach will, can help you with, kicking off that process, because you don't, may not know, what am I supposed to ask myself? But if you just be aware of what are your beliefs. And, here, there's another story I would like to help, a short one, and it's actually about me. There was a time when I was younger, and I've been a pretty rebellious kind of person in terms of my thought. So I would ask why for everything. And I got married, and we were a double income family. I was working, my husband was working. And then I started taking care of the kitchen and the household stuff. And quite a few years later, actually, I asked myself, why did I just assume that this is my role? I never questioned it. Being somebody who is otherwise so rebellious or otherwise very questioning. So these are thoughts that you've never identified. It just comes to you. The society brings it to you. And subconsciously, sometimes very consciously, when your mama says, you have to cook or you have to do this, casting you into a stereotype. And you just don't question those things. If you're aware of your thoughts, then you can question them. You can understand them. Do I even like it? I mean, it was years later that I realized that, God, hell, I don't like cooking, So you won't find yourself in a situation where you end up doing stuff you don't enjoy, you don't like. It actually does not de-stress you, but stresses you. And you'll be far happier if you take the right decision based on conscious thought, intentional action. And again, I mean, these can be all different things for different people, which is why I'm, giving you the theory behind it, because I know some people who love cooking so much that they actually de-stress by cooking. So yes, it does depend on your specific situation and what you specifically think about, your specific beliefs, and how to carry on from there. And for heaven's sake, ask the questions to yourself, to others, just because every human being is unique, and all of you will come up with your own rights, wrongs, shoulds, nots. Don't take this on a platter given by society to you, that this is what it should be, or this is what it ought to be. Yeah, Ashoka?
So as a consequence of your realization that you had been doing things without questioning yourself, I'm quite interested to know who ended up doing the rest of the work from there on. Is it your husband who had to maintain?
It's like this. My husband is he can barely make Maggie and egg. Probably can't even boil rice. But so what I did, and I had been cooking for a long time, I just assumed, and I was doing it miserable while doing it. I think I burn myself a couple of times every time I go in the kitchen. But what I did was that I said, I know what I'm good at. I know what I like doing. I'm not good at this. I don't even like doing this. So I have a house help. And I do invest in training her, and I make sure that the monthly menu is given to her, so I don't even have to decide. So the training part takes time, but yes, I've kind of solved that stressful situation of mine. So if you ask me what's for dinner tonight in my house, I don't know.
Awesome. And also, I really love the idea of dating with myself. Now, that brings me back to a basic question around, am I really prepared to do that? Because I myself have gone through a stressful situation when I'm not doing anything and sitting down, because I'm under the opinion that I might be losing upon something that I should have checked upon. Or am I really wasting time by not using that time to do something productive? So what I'm not able to realize is giving time to myself in itself is going to be productive for my next coming actions. So how do we, I mean, I want you to take more time there and stress upon dating with myself, because that is something that we all as a generation are missing as on today. So please, ma'am.
Ashoka, and it's very interesting. So I've shared a little bit about myself and you're sharing a little bit about you. And why I want to stress and I want to take it forward in this train is because the solutions are not global. So like I said, I can give you the theory behind it. I can tell you, sit with yourself. But the questions you ask yourself, the thoughts that you evaluate, the links that you draw up, those are very personal, very individual rather. Maybe personal, may not be personal. And I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier talks with you only, I think, that today we don't have a sounding board. We don't have somebody external with whom we can talk, a younger chacha or a bua or a mosi, who can kind of help us or guide us in that. So like in your case, when you say that when I sit with myself, the question that come in my mind is, could I be spending my time more productively? So let's understand this, Ashoka. What is productive in your mind?
Yeah, that is where I'm coming to.
Yeah, what is productive? I'm asking you. So what is productive?
It is about work that I do. I might be more concerned about my work, and I might be thinking that I'm lacking behind when compared to the rest of the CEOs who will be doing a lot of productive work in terms of minting money. I mean, all of this will get on to a next level of stress, which keeps me poking that I should have done this, I should have worked on a presentation, I should have talked to this person, and what did I do today that should have been done within the stipulated time.
So what you have just defined, and if you rewind and replay what you have just said, okay, you have said productive to earn money. Okay?
Yes.
So then now I'm just I wouldn't do this with you if exactly like this, if we were in a coaching call, because then I would let you really deep dive yourself into this. But since we have a limited period of time and I do want to drive the point home, then you have to ask yourself, who has defined that productive work is earning money?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is so coincidental, because again, today I was writing something and I've written about, pop culture, which is popular culture, defines success in a certain way. It's what? It's money, it's career achievements, it's fame, and it's, physical appearance. Okay. And even in the physical appearance, very set ideas, fair, curvaceous, thin. For the men, it is six-pack, ab and bulky and, stuff like that. It wasn't like this a few years ago, a few decades ago, right? And the whole idea is that if you base your success on external definitions like this, kalko, somebody says that, okay, now thin is no longer in, and you've been starving yourself and you're like this, thin and whatever. And the whole thing falls apart. So your self-esteem is gone. You're feeling inadequate. You're feeling stressed out about the fact that, oh, I am not good looking. Right? So how can your self-worth and how can your mental peace of mind be so dependent on something external? Are there other ways you can define success? Can you define it on the basis of compassion? Can you define it on the basis of, and okay, I'm not trying to be very holier than thou, money is not required, or no, money is required. You have to do that. But that doesn't mean that, if you haven't got X number of lakhs or crores in your bank account, then you're not successful. It doesn't mean that you're not successful. It means you've not got X number of lakhs. So state the thing for what it is. Yes, I do not have X number of lakhs, but that does not mean I'm not successful, because I define my success on another thing. Always define your success not on something you can tick mark on a piece of paper as a checklist or a milestone. Because what happens with most of us, this is a topic of happiness actually. We say, okay, when my company reaches this valuation, I will be at peace. Then I'll stop working, then I'll be happy. Okay. You will reach there, Ashoka, and then you will realize that the happiness lasts, no doubt. You will feel happy. It will last for a month, maybe 2 months, maybe a week. I don't know. It all depends on the person concerned, okay, and how tough the climb was. And then you'll be like, what next? There's a study which actually talks about the happiness levels of people who met an accident and they became paraplegic, I mean, below the waist, and they had to be in a wheelchair. And another set of people who won the lottery. 2 years down the line, these groups of people who are matched in terms of age, gender, sex, it's actually a psychological research that is done, their happiness levels were the same. And would you believe that? You would think that, array, lottery, so obviously the guy is going to be happier, he's going to have money, and if he saves, he'll have money 2 years down the line. That's what you think. Facts are not like that. And that is something called hedonic adaptation. So you get used to the situation you're in. Once you buy your first car, 2 months down the line, it's a car. Then you want the bigger one. And then you want the bigger one. So great, you should aim for the bigger one. There is nothing wrong in doing that, and you don't have to be apologetic about it. But why does your happiness and your definition of success and your feeling of worth, how worthy you feel, depend on something like that? Does it make a person less beautiful, less kind, less attractive because they don't have money? I've not seen that in real life, Yes, it seems like that. Society people will come to you only if you have money and you're dressed nicely, they're attracted to you. Darling, those are fake. They're not coming for you. The one who comes for you will come for who you are. So, yeah, I think I did go a bit round and round all over the place, but I can really do that.
The hedonic adaptation that we are just talking about, now that should also be true with not only happiness, but also with the other side of happiness, which is about when we are sorrow and when we are feeling bad about a situation.
Yep.
Might also not be a long-lasting feeling.
Yeah.
Also might need to come out of it.
Which is why the group of guys who were in the wheelchair who had gone through an accident, 2 years down the line, they were not at a pathetic grief kind of a happiness level. Their levels matched, they were pretty average. They matched the levels of the guys who won the lottery. So yeah, this too shall pass away. There's another story which is an Akbar Birbal story. And he says, Akbar as usual tells his minister that, what is the one thing that you would say to a happy guy so that he becomes sad? And what would you say to a sad guy that he will become happy? But the phrase has to be the same. And Birbal, as usual, the smart and witty guy, he says, this too shall pass away. So yeah, this too shall pass away. Whatever you're feeling happy about, it'll come back to an average level. Whatever you're ecstatic about and whatever you're low and grieving about. And it's I don't know, it's just something that is. Even when you lose somebody, maybe it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, your normal happiness quotient levels come back to a certain stage. More difficult situations or more sorrowful situations might take some time. The smaller ones will go away faster. So that is all there. But yeah, this too shall pass away.
Yes, this too shall pass away.
Absolutely.
While someone is going through chronic stress, if it is long lasting, and if they'll have to get some help externally, what should they be doing? And how do someone realize that they're going through enormous long-lasting stress? What are the physical symptoms and what are the mental symptoms?
Okay. In terms of, physical symptoms, the first thing, and I'm actually going to refer to a slide here so that I don't miss any, and you have all the stuff that you guys need to know, what you need to keep a lookout for. Okay. So your symptoms of stress can be physical, behavioral, emotional, or cognitive. Okay. And in terms of physical, you start to feel aches and pains. Digestion is another one. I told you why, because that your digestion actually stops during a stressful situation. You can have chest pains, a feeling of heaviness. You can have nausea. And your immunity goes down, and you might also find yourself not being able to sleep or sleeping too much. So it's that part is similar to feeling low and depressed also. In terms of behavioral, you have eating disorders. So again, anorexia and stuff. And these are again extreme cases. You might find yourself in a situation where you don't feel like doing the thing. You're so stressed that you keep postponing the thing that you are supposed to do. Because maybe you have a perfectionist mindset, and therefore you were like, this is not the right time to do it. I'll do it when I have the right camera. I'll do it when I have, something or whatever. That's what happens. Behaviorally, if you're stressed, you do things like, bite your nails, pace up and down. Those things happen. Emotionally, what happens is you're generally a bit low on happiness levels. You sometimes feel anxiety and agitation. You're irritable. Sometimes you snap at people for no reason. And loneliness also is something that is, you feel lonely. And I always say, make a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. So if you're feeling lonely, there's something going on in your head. On the cognitive level, and this is something that, I always say when I am talking to corporate people, when you're stressed, your memory goes down. Your problem-solving capability depletes drastically. And again, there are biological and psychological researches that have been done, and I can quote them, but it'll be too much pedagogy at that time. And if you're continuously worrying about something, your thoughts are doing a hopscotch. You jump from here to here, your focus is lost. And that is also very applicable to the students, because when your memory goes down, when your problem solving is compromised, and you have all sorts of those things, obviously you're not going to be able to put in your best.
Yeah.
So watch out for all these. And so while, somewhere when I say self-awareness, is one is your thoughts. It's also to be aware of what's happening in your body. Listen to it. All the nutrition and food researches and do this and do that, they'll all come and go. We've had changes happen. Sometimes they say, ghee is good. Then they say, no, it's bad. And then they say, again, it's good, all those things. But if you learn to have a balanced kind of an approach, and you learn to listen to your body will tell you. So, a one-off headache is fine. I mean, that happens. Once in a week headache, maybe it's okay. But if you find yourself having consistent headache, and it is not allowing you to do the stuff that you want to do, then first of all, the things that I have mentioned in terms of the physical relaxation techniques, do it whenever you feel stressed. You're irritated at the traffic, just take 5 deep breaths. No harm in that, right? When do you need to seek help of a coach or a counselor? That is when you really start to feel like it's affecting you. So you have to listen to your body. There is no one size fits all, Ashoka, that, I can tell you this is the gradation level, and at this level, you should go. And like I said, some level of stress is good.
So it is really about self-awareness that will make the difference. You got to understand when is it that you got to seek external help if you are being adversely impacted by stress. Now,
definitely seek external help the minute you start to find that you are not able to perform and do the things that you were able to do earlier. That is the cognitive part and stuff. Or you see a strong change in your behavior patterns. And the best way of doing that is not by self-assessment. Sometimes if you're not somebody who can be objective, the best way is to ask somebody who's very close to you, a close friend or your sister or a sibling or brother, who knows your patterns, and they will be able to identify that pattern easily if you are not able to. So ask them.
Sure. It's a reminder to the audience. Does any one of you would want to talk to our guest today? If so, please raise your hand before I finish off my next question, and then I shall give you an opportunity to talk to the guest. Ma'am, now this also brings me to almost towards the end of our discussion, but an important question that I wanted to highlight. The physical fitness of a person, is it related or is it proportional to the ability to control stress or the ability to manage stress?
I'm actually very glad that you brought this up, Ashoka, because while there was, I had planned to talk about that part at some point in the talk. It kind of slipped off because of the flow in which we were going. Yes, we talked about the physical relaxation techniques. Even before there actually comes preventive stuff, right? And the preventive stuff is lifestyle changes and exercise and your eating habits. Now, how do they help in management of stress? No, they don't help in managing stress exactly once you're stressed. But what happens is if you have a balanced lifestyle, if you are exercising, and if you are eating and sleeping well, then your energy reserves are high. So think of it like a bank account, right? If your energy is completely depleted and you are not fit, you're not healthy, your lifestyle is sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 11 o'clock in the morning after the world is up and about, stuff like that, because circadian rhythms, that is the daily rhythms, also matter. Then when a stressful situation arises, so if you've been doing all this and your exams are on your head, it's very difficult to cope up with that stressful situation. Fitness specifically and exercise specifically is one of the best attacks of stress when you're feeling it also, because when you exercise, you release something called endorphins, and they're called happy hormones. So anybody who does, go for a jog in the morning and stuff like that, you go, you run, and you could actually feel peppy. Once you finish the run, your body is a bit, like obviously you're tired if you run for half an hour or 1 hour, but you will feel that there is a peppiness, a jumpiness in your body. Because why? Because of the endorphins.
Sure. Thanks a lot. I've got a couple of hands here and I would like to ask Vamsi to ask his question. Vamsi, go ahead, unmute yourself and please ask the question.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon.
My question is we have been talking about stress management in this session, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking more deeply, instead of managing stress, if we have some mind management skills, from childhood we have been taught how to be a civilized human being, but we are not taught about anything about our mind. If we want to ask our parents, even they don't know, because they were also not taught about it. I really don't find anyone a professional who teaches NLP techniques or mind management techniques, because they charge you thousands of rupees and that's a big business. I don't want to get into that. But I feel that being a human being, it's a fundamental right to know how our brain works.
Absolutely.
It should be trained like that. So can we practice mind management in NLP without going to trained professional?
Absolutely, Vamsi. And I am so glad. And I think the youth of today is far more intelligent and capable than we give them credit for. And I am so ecstatic that you have said this, and you can't believe it. Yes, mind management, managing your thoughts, is something that we should be teaching kids in school. It is so important, because what happens is, and while I did not name it as NLP or mind management, when you sit with your thoughts and you analyze your thoughts, that's the first step to mind management. Yeah, you are able to, if you're able to look at your thoughts from an outside objective kind of a way, that is the start of mind management. So that's number one. We allow our thoughts to literally go all over the place, like a bull in a china shop. So obviously there is a lot of destruction and a lot of negative consequences happen, most of which you're not even aware of. So yes, that's the first step that you can take, Vamsi. Secondly, there are free courses galore on the internet. So start off there. You have Udemy, you have Coursera, and this is not an advertisement, by the way, but there are lots and lots of courses that you can do self-training in or understand that. And these are nothing but very, very simple things. You can, listen to most motivational stuff, which will then tell you how to go about managing your brain, your thoughts. And over time, you will start to learn how to look at the thoughts objectively and then ask yourself the question. There's no rocket science to this, honestly. You don't have to understand the amygdala is the seat of fear, or this is the primal, or this is the prefrontal cortex. That you can leave it to the therapists and the psychologists and crazy people like me who love psychology so much. But for you, if you can understand and look at your thoughts objectively, that's a start. And then today the world is open, with the kind of things that you can learn.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Vamsi, for that.
Excuse me, sir. One more question, sir. Last. Don't mind, please.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Even one more point. Today's world, everyone, including professionals, everyone is struggling with their emotions. We have a course, even my father attended it, emotional intelligence at workplace. Mm-hmm. So I'm reading the books also, but I am not understanding how do we practice emotional intelligence in day-to-day life.
Very interesting. I just love the coincidence. Today is when I was talking about what I was writing, I was actually writing my blog on a series where I'm looking at, generally emotions and then each emotion at a time. So, okay, how much time do we have, Ashoka?
We only have about a couple of minutes.
Okay, so let me make it quick and short. There are lots of emotions that are there. Each of the emotions has a biology. And when you say, what is emotional intelligence, at the end of the day, it's your next level of self-awareness, where you're not only aware of your thoughts, but you're aware of your emotions. You're able to identify them. You're able to name them and work through them in a way that you act productively and not destructively. Okay, so for example, anger, an emotion everybody discounts. Everybody says it's negative, your blood boils, the blood pressure goes up, all that. But look at it like this. Anger is something that actually is giving you a sign. The emotion is actually a message telling you that something's not right for you. You don't like this situation, and that's the emotion's job. Now, aggression is the manifestation of that anger, which is an action. That is a negative thing. The anger per se is not negative. And while all the researchers initially said that anger is bad for the body physically, it has been found out that anger per se is not bad. If you're destructive, aggression is bad, or for that matter, if you suppress it and you don't acknowledge it and you see the inside, then it is bad. So emotional intelligence, Vamsi, is exactly this. When you're able to, anger is one and a small, small tiny example that I've given you. So there's fear, there is joy, there is sadness. And if you're interested in emotional intelligence, I would like to recommend that cartoon, I think Pixar it was, Inside Out. It's a beautiful movie which actually explains the importance of sadness and how we generally say, don't cry, don't pine and whine in public, or you look weak, especially for boys. If you're crying, then you're weak, kind of a thing. That movie is a beautiful example of how each emotion is essential. And in that movie, the role of sadness and is kind of explained at the end of the day in a very beautiful way.
I've seen that movie.
I love it. I love that movie. So, I'm somebody I'm very comfortable with the dark side of emotions, whether it's anger or thinking of dark thoughts. And when that movie came up, I was so glad that it was being acknowledged, that it's all right to be sad or to cry. It's you don't have to judge yourself negatively for feeling sad. It's so required.
It's also important for you to have someone in your life who's going to make you acknowledge and realize that you'll need to be okay with all of your emotions, because most of the times we are unaware that we are going through that phase.
Ashoka, that is why I said that the first step is self-awareness.
Yes.
The moment and there is no end goal to that. I think I've been doing this work on myself With every interaction, there is something new that you learn. With every time you sit with yourself, there are new thoughts that you are able to identify. Like I said, after X number of years, I suddenly realized that, oh God, why didn't I rebel against that cooking thing? So it's not as if, it's something that is 10,000 hours of self-awareness and you'll be done. It's not like that.
Yeah, and we've got another question from Sabha. Sabha, would you want to go on mute and take a question? Yes.
Yes, good afternoon. I wanted to know how we should deal with a person under stress, especially when he or she is displaying anger and aggression as a result of it. Because I know someone who is a victim of not stress, but of a person who's under stress. So how should we, what should be my advice to her, the victim?
So let me get this straight. What you're saying is, somebody who is facing consequences because of somebody else's stress, which manifests itself into aggression. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is in terms of specific advice, Sabha, I don't know is it a parent-child kind of a situation? Is it a husband-wife kind of a situation? Because obviously, if it's a friend kind of a situation, you can just walk away, right?
No, it's actually in a family. It's the father, the main person. So he's affecting his wife, his wife and his kids also. So you cannot walk away over here.
What makes you feel that it is stress and not anger and aggression? So
usually,
what I'm trying to say is that I'm not so sure whether it is this, what is causing that emotion or the aggression. And without knowing any of this, if it is bordering onto the state of abuse, then obviously a family intervention or some help externally needs to be sought in terms of, if it is getting into physical abuse.
No, it's not physical abuse, and the person is usually jolly, but whenever under stress, situations get out of control.
Oh, okay. So the advice I would give to that person whom you want to give that advice to is that as long as there's no physical abuse, it is basically at that point in time blocking for that period of time, blocking that away. So in stress management, you have there is a tool called 5A. The first one obviously is awareness. You need to be aware of what is causing the problem. The second is to alter the situation. So in this situation, they can't alter the situation because it's a family kind of a situation. The third one is to avoid the situation. Here again, it's not a friend you can just walk out on or avoid. So that's a third, not possible. Then there is accept the situation or adapt to the situation, right? Accept obviously happens in cases where there's grief involved and you've lost somebody and there's nothing anybody can do about it. But in this kind of a situation, you adapt. How do you adapt? You basically learn to block your mind for that 5, 10, 15 minutes. If it is possible to walk away from that environment, go ahead, walk away, because what I understand is it's not abuse. It's not that, there is major thing. The parent is going through stressful time and sometimes it comes out as, outbursts of anger, right? It's very important for the child not to think that, it is their fault in any way. It is also very important for you to understand, for her or him to understand that there is nothing he can do about that, because it's not because they are children. I would say that unless and until that person who's undergoing that stress is willing to do something about it, there's nothing the other person can do. So anybody who comes to me, if somebody says, I want you to coach my husband or my child, I say the person has to come to me directly, because it just doesn't work. But as far as what your friend can do is they can adapt in situations by blocking it out, or they can avoid the situation by not being there when the outburst starts to happen.
Thank you, ma'am. We're almost towards the end of our session. There's one question on the chat, but it's about how to get out of body shaming. I'm not sure if it is this stress relating to body shaming, and if you want to take it up. Yeah.
No, but we did talk about that a little bit, right? Because and we did talk about how the concept of body has been defined by popular culture, by society these days. Unfortunately, it's become a global thing, because at least earlier there was a different concept of beauty in different cultures, right? So I still remember as a North Indian, sometimes I would look at, and I'm talking of like 25, 30 years ago, and the kind of heroines we had in the South were very different from the ones that we had in Bollywood, right? And because the concept of beauty was more local, right?
Yeah.
And today the concept of beauty has become global. How do you expect an Indian complexion to be as fair as the Caucasians? It's literally impossible. That's really point number one. So in a way we had restricted that kind of a thing to cultures and groups. Now it's kind of really spread all across. It's a uniform, like we were saying, six-pack abs, bulk, hunky muscle man is good. If you don't have broad shoulders, if you're not tall, then you don't have a personality. Hitler, how tall he was? He was like 5 feet something, but he had a personality. He influenced like so many people negatively, unfortunately, but did do that, right? So there are no set standards. We can look at the pop culture and feel whatever we feel about that, but when you look at yourself, for heaven's sake, don't define yourself by that. And like I said, tomorrow, if the whole concept of good looks changes to darker is beautiful or shorter is better, then your whole sense of self-worth and adequacy will just crumble, right? If you need your sense of self-worth and yourself to have that feeling of adequacy which is sustainable, it has to come from who you are and whatever that is. Because my another thing I say very often is nature's created you, and if nature has created you, how can that be wrong? How?
That is so true. Also, is it because we are confused in between sort of approval that we are seeking from others, then the approval that we are trying to seek from ourselves? So in the first case, where we are more concerned about the approval that we are seeking from others, should we be learning to block that and ignore such comments of body shaming because we know what we are? That might help us gain more confidence.
Yep. Yeah. And absolutely, Ashoka. And I don't know, but it's also about the way you think, right? I have seen many fat women, okay, who wear whatever they wear, and they are so confident when they talk, what they say, how they move, because they themselves have not bought into the logic of the world saying you're fat, so you're not good enough or you're not attractive. It's only that thought in those women's head, and I applaud and really clap my hands at those women, because it's increasingly becoming difficult. But again, if you know what your values are, if you know what you stand for, if you define your own success based on the values that are important to you, not the checkpoints, but the values that are important to you, you will be able to combat that. I mean, I was laughed at for my deep, gruff voice. And here I am talking to you guys on a webinar without feeling self-conscious, right?
You're awesome. I mean, your voice is so intensive, profound, and you're awesome.
Thank you so much, Ashoka.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. And we have come to the end of our session today. I'm sure it's been quite intensive and quite useful to myself, at least.
I love talking to the youngsters. I just love it.
All
Our
right.
future. Yes.
So guys, if you have any questions going forward, please do send them beforehand to lets.talk@younify.com, as well as do join us every day at the same time, because we'll be going through fantastic discussions every day. And we have a panel discussion coming on this Sunday. So keep looking forward to that. And thank you all. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Ashoka.
Thank you.